Okay, Unit 10, Lecture 4C. We're talking about some of the internal problems facing the Soviet Union that bring about its collapse. We had nationalism and its inefficient economic system, and then the desire for freedom is spurred on by Gorbachev's introduction of glasnost and perestroika. Okay, external pressures on the Soviet government that you need to be aware of are going to come from its European satellites, communist satellites. Those are also experiencing rising feelings of nationalism. Okay, remember, a satellite is a nation that is formally independent but actually dominated by Moscow, by the Soviet government in Moscow. Okay, as the Cold War had developed after World War II, most of the nations of Eastern Europe became satellites of the Soviet Union. These Soviet satellites included Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. Okay, so Poland and East Germany became centers of discontent. That was hammy. Centers of discontent in the 1980s. Okay, the Solidarity labor movement. I want you to know this is led by Lech Walesa, L-E-C-H, Walesa, W-A-L-E-S-A, in Poland. Creates great unrest during this decade, okay? And by the late 80s, East German citizens are holding mass protests to show their desire for new leadership. So in 1987, Ronald Reagan, still president, added to the external pressures on the Soviet Union by traveling to the Berlin Wall and saying, and know this quote, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." So a couple things you need to remember about Reagan. He called them the evil empire and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall," okay? So, and this wall, talking about the Berlin Wall, they're the symbol of the Cold War. So the Berlin Wall divided communist East Berlin from democratic West Berlin. Again, best known symbol of the Cold War. All right, the East German government built the Berlin Wall in 1961 as a means to keep its citizens from escaping to the West. However, by late 1989, the communist government in East Germany was so unstable that East German citizens began to tear down whole sections of the Berlin Wall without any interference from government officials. No government officials were trying to stop them. All right. So the fall of the Berlin Wall occurred during the presidency of George H.W. Bush. Okay, the father of George W. Bush. He had succeeded Ronald Reagan as president in January '89. In late 1990, Germany was formally reunified under the democratic leadership of West Germany. All right. So communist governments quickly fell from power in the Soviet Union's other eastern satellites as soon as this occurred. In 1991, the Soviet Union fell apart. Soviet Union, like I said earlier, was made up of 15 republics, Soviet socialist republics, which included an enormous variety of cultures, languages, and ethnic groups. As the Gorbachev government introduced democratic reforms, the republics began to push for more change. Like I said earlier, when you give people a little bit, they want more and more and more. The three Baltic republics of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia even declared their independence from the Soviet Union. And soon after, other republics followed suit. So by the year's end, Gorbachev agreed to dismantle, take apart the entire communist system, including the 15 million member Communist Party. Remember, as I said earlier in class, the Communist Party was never everybody. It never made it even a majority of the Soviet people, the Russian people. Okay, and this party had once controlled all aspects, every aspect of Soviet society. So on Christmas Day in 1991, Gorbachev resigned and declared the Soviet Union had ended and the Cold War was over. Okay, so at the end of the Cold War, the United States is going to change its goals and policies in the area of foreign affairs. Involvement in conflicts in other areas of the world had been an integral or fundamental or basic part of the U.S. foreign policy. And now we have to change the way we think about how we're going to react or interact with the rest of the world. Okay, end of Unit 10, Lecture 4.